Hey everyone, I'm not here to waste any time. In today's video, I'm going to be discussing the biggest change to ALGS in a long time, potentially ever, and why it's been such an incredibly polarizing change. The structure of the video is going to go like this. First, I'm going to explain the change and its implications on competitive Apex. Then I'm going to show some of the pro reactions to the change, and then the video would conclude with my personal opinion on the topic. So let's get into it. Alright, so obviously you guys need to know what the change actually is. For the rest of the competitive year, the way dropships work have been completely reworked. What I'm going to do is play clips from the official announcement and then add a bit of context in and stuff like that throughout the explanation.
Prior to the Pro League regular season, each team receives a random assortment of draft picks for match days 1 through 9. The assortment is perfectly equal, meaning if a team receives the first draft pick, they'll also receive the 40th draft pick on that match day. This draft style is called a snake draft, and the order of draft picks changes with each match day, which means that teams may not always get their preferred POI.
Alright, so the first thing here is that despite each team getting a new set of draft picks each Pro League day, their average placement will average out to 10th, so that it's even across the board. As far as I'm aware, that doesn't necessarily mean that each team will have each pick, if that makes sense. Like a team's average could be hypothetically, like they get the first pick, they get the 20th pick every week, and that could be their average at the 10th, or a different team could get 9th and 11th every week, and that would be the way theirs averages out. I'm not really sure on that front, like the specifics of that, so we'll kind of just have to see how that plays out in practice.
On draft day, each team will make 2 draft picks, 1 Storm Point drop spot and 1 World's Edge drop spot. Strategizing is crucial, as drop spots on both maps are up for grabs at the same time. There will always be more drop spots than teams, which means that even if you're the last pick, you'll have multiple options to choose from. Once a POI is chosen, it's off limits to all other teams for that match series.
Alright, so this means that contesting has effectively been killed, except in certain POIs where there are dropships that split the POIs. Even in those cases, teams usually don't pick those split POIs, so contesting basically just doesn't exist anymore.
On match day, each team is dropped from an individual dropship above their drop spot.
The last bit here is that each team will drop simultaneously above their POI, meaning that old advantage of the ship starting closer to your POI, allowing players to get their ultimates and complete their loot routes faster, no longer exists. Okay, now let's go a bit deeper into the explanation of how the system works. The seeding for draft picks will be randomly assigned within each team's regular season Pro League group. For regional finals and LAN rounds, the draft order is going to be determined by performance, meaning the better you've been performing, the higher draft pick you'll get, and vice versa. This places an even bigger importance on not only a team's placement within their own respective region, but also their placement in the group stages and elimination rounds at LAN. The goal of this system is to even the playing field across teams, while challenging them to adapt to different POIs and playstyles. Alright, so if you guys didn't understand, make sure to go back in the video or ask me in the comments for any clarification, and I'll be sure to help you out and explain the best I can on how the system works. Ultimately though, when looking at this system, the entire way ALGS is played has changed. Teams will now have to learn the loot paths, rotations, and playstyles from basically every single landing spot. This may mean that you'll see some of your favorite teams play a completely different playstyle or comp than they used to, just because they are now at a new POI. However, this also means that the best teams will no longer get the best POIs through hard work. It used to be that the best teams got the best POIs through the hard work and competition of contesting throughout the season and the off season and scaring the other teams away, and essentially earning the right to land at better POIs. That is no longer the case. So let's go check in on the pro community to see what they thought about the change. First reaction I have for you guys, I actually want to play this clip from the immediate reaction of Hal and the rest of his team, so Jen and Zero. The pros already knew that this idea was circling around, but once they got word that they could officially talk about it, this is what Hal, Zero, and Jen had to say about it.
Well, my public opinion is they're fucking stupid. So
Yeah, guys, everyone, boys.
let's introduce randomized fucking landings. No skill of who actually gets what. Let me just flip a coin and see if you get dome or not.
If we look at a tweet from a guy like Timmy, he takes like a comedic approach to the whole thing, just saying, excited to announce that ESG will be landing somewhere. Verhulst is excited for the draft system and says that contesting sucks, so he's glad to see it gone. While Hal is really upset about the draft and the fact that positions are picked basically randomly, and says it's the worst change ever made in Apex history. If we look at 9impulse's tweet, we can see he's happy about the change, saying that the draft system won't allow people to just monopolize POIs, and says that if you're good, then you should be good from any POI, and if you're a team that plays on one specific playstyle and can't do anything else, then basically you're just not good enough. We also have a tweet here from Nasky, who says the POI draft system is amazing on paper, but has a massive flaw. And the flaw, which I will talk about a little bit later, is that the POIs are incredibly unbalanced. And because of the imbalance, it's going to add a ton of luck into the game. We also have a tweet here from Zach Mazer, and the tweet is much longer than this screenshot, but I didn't really feel like putting the whole thing in there, and I feel like this is the most important part. But basically, he's saying that the system seems rushed, and it's really unfortunate how the ALGS Pro Discord voted in favor of not putting the draft system in, and that he's seen a lot more hate than praise in the feedback channels. And he says that it's not really polished and esports ready, and the fact that they're just implementing this right before Pro League is really frustrating to him. He says that the feedback channels are being blown up with ideas from a bunch of different pros, but they're kind of just getting told that they don't really have time to implement them, which is really frustrating to him because they basically said they didn't want this system put in the game, and then they did it anyway. And then when pros had their suggestions for it, they were like, you know what, we don't even have time, but we're just gonna do it anyway. So basically at this point, I'm sure you guys kind of get the idea. It's a very polarizing change that not everybody is really on the same page about. All right, so my personal opinion on the matter is that from a viewer's perspective, this is a fantastic change. The first reason is just the variety it brings to the playing field. Watching your favorite team land at the exact same spot and rotate the exact same way and end up in the exact same spots when specific zones repeat can just be boring at a certain point. Especially when you're someone like me who watches scrims a lot, this change just makes everything feel less repetitive. In addition to this, we get to see different teams try out different playstyles or even different comps, as they may be forced into landing at POIs that require playing specific legends or playing zone/edge. You also get to see the way that different teams may play the exact same POIs very differently, which also adds some more variety. Ultimately, this is a change that provides viewers with a lot more opportunity to watch different things happen in the game. However, from the competitor side of me, I can't help being a little bit frustrated with this change. First off, personally, I love the idea of contesting for the best POIs. I feel like the best teams should have an advantage. It's a battle royale. It's not other games where the playing field is supposed to be even. In my opinion, it kind of just eliminates that whole element of skill out of the game. Contesting is a skill. Spawn fighting is a skill. And those who are good at it should be rewarded with the best POIs. Personally, I don't like taking that element out of the game. When POIs are not balanced across the board, it shouldn't be fair. I don't think anything could really change my mind on this, honestly. Going back to the point about POIs not being balanced across the board though, that brings me to my second point, which is that there are not 20 legitimate landing spots on each map. There just aren't. If we look at the map here, some teams will automatically be screwed if they land at these spots. They're just terrible. It's like Nasky's tweet said, are you lucky enough to get Siphon? Or are you just gonna roll Geyser? Oh, you rolled Geyser? Well, that's too bad. Your World's Edge is probably gonna go terribly. Like, I don't see how adding this level of RNG to the game is a good thing. I understand that every team's draft placement is gonna average out to 10th, but hypothetically, let's say a team were to get picks 7 and 13 every week. That's a huge advantage over a team that were to pick 1st and 20th. This is just simply because the POIs are not balanced enough. Getting the absolute best POI in the game and then getting the worst one is significantly worse than just getting a bunch of mid POIs. The difference between the best and the worst POI in the game is so huge that being at just some okay POIs is much better. So even though all teams would average out to 10th, there's still a lot of opportunity for some teams just to get screwed in the draft process. Either way though, this change is here to stay for the rest of the competitive year. So we'll see how it turns out. If you guys enjoyed this video and are interested in competitive Apex, hit that subscribe button and that like button. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video.